Spring 2009 on TSN is brought to you by the new Q horsepower from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Michelin, a better way forward.
You know, when it comes to automobiles, like everything else in life, it is said that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Design is subjective. Well, you're looking at the Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon. When it was first introduced about 30 years ago, it was the company's first foray into the sport utility world. Well, it's not exactly my cup of tea, but the G-Wagon was extremely popular in Canada despite a price of about $125,000. Well, this week, we're going to check out, shall we call it, the baby G-Wagon, the reincarnation of the G-Wagon. They're calling it the GLK 350. But before we check out this model for 2010, I've got a question to ask Mercedes-Benz. You've already got the GL and the ML Sport Utilities in the showroom. Do you really need another one?
Why the GLK? Effectively, it's the market segment. We've felt that we didn't have a player in this particular segment that is growing significantly in the Canadian marketplace, and we felt that we certainly had a very good platform for it, which is based off the C-Class sedan, and the fact that you know, we could slot one more SUV into our family. Now we have really a full range, everything from the mid-size GLK to the rugged G-Class. This is almost a departure from Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes has always been traditionally considered very much a classic execution on design aspect. I think this one really stands out. It's very different from what we've done in the past. And like I said, we're trying to sort of take the classic elements of the G-Class, but infuse a lot of this, you know, these modern touches, you know, angular lines, you know, very modern interpretation of a classic. So I think this is something very much new for Mercedes-Benz, and we feel that the design elements are going in the right direction for us.
The thing that strikes me the most about this car is the sense of timing. Is this the best time to be bringing out a CUV, whether or not it's small or compact or midsize? You know, the car industry is rocking back on its heels right now, and I think the timing could be better. That said, they plan these things, what, 3 or 4 years in advance, so maybe they had no choice. I got nothing against the vehicle, it's just the timing is kind of wonky, I think.
It's basically a proven and tested 3.5-liter V6 with 268 horsepower, 258 pounds of torque. Certainly a very nice engine that provides quite a bit of power. The car is actually quite quick, and it's certainly it's almost a leader in the segment, effectively, in terms of you know, power to weight ratio.
Mercedes has entered this mid-size market simply because of its popularity. A lot of that has to do with high gas prices. People are now downsizing to get better fuel economy. Well, if you're going to buy a vehicle like this GLK 350 or one of its competitors, maybe you should think about downsizing the family. This is why. These seats will fold down flat, giving you more cargo space. But the reality is you've got 4 adults or 2 adults and 2 kids. In that case, you really are limited as to how much extra luggage you can take. You have some great wagons in Mercedes. I don't know how old you are, but don't they do the same thing? I mean,
well, the wagons do. Unfortunately, we feel that Canadians are different people. Canadians really like SUVs. You know, wagons certainly do quite well in Europe, and we have a very wide range, good range, including the C-Class, the E-Class wagons, but we felt that the GLK is a lot better fit for the Canadian marketplace.
Well, I guess the youths are making more money than I made in my younger days, because when I was young, I wouldn't even have considered a vehicle like this. But yeah, you might be right. They're going with the times. You cannot make a big vehicle anymore. You know, Mercedes has had some problem with their big G-Class and some of their bigger sport use. People aren't buying them. And it's interesting to note that they are not calling this an SUV. This is a CUV. I mean, the appellation SUV, they're avoiding that like the plague, right? So CUV is what they're calling it. Crossover, yeah, I'll buy it.
it wasn't that long ago that a gentleman from Mercedes told us that 30% of the price of a Mercedes is actually the star on the grille. Well, this is the way we got it figured. This GLK 350 starts at about $41,000, which is competitive in this segment. But we figured subtract 30% for the star, and this vehicle is really only costing you $28,000. That's a deal.
people should be proud to drive a Mercedes-Benz, and if you can show it, we say go ahead and show it. So if you want the star on the grill to be larger and more prominent, I think we feel that that is the right thing for our customers anyhow.
It's a Mercedes. I mean, they don't generally put a foot wrong. What'll make or break this vehicle is price and what you get for the money. I mean, we're a nation of cheapskates. We want maximum bang for minimum bucks, and that's what they got to deliver here. We'll have to see. I don't know what you were talking about price earlier. We'll have to see. If they can keep it down, then they'll probably sell some. But I just think people are not buying new cars. I mean, you could put out the best car ever built, and it's not going to change things. So it's timing.
Should the competition be worried?
I think so. It's a great car. Everything put together. Adaptive suspension, based agility control suspension, lifted from the C-Class, provides a really unmatched, balance between on-road performance and handling, as well as the traditional sort of Mercedes-Benz luxury and clutchness level. The fourth generation 4MATIC system, which is absolutely fantastic. It's light, it's simple. So everything put together, the car is certainly a success, and I think the competition should be a little worried.
But Mommy, now I gotta go to the bathroom. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
Some say it has a face that only a mother could love, others plain loved it. On this edition of Test Drive, the all-new Acura TL. The new TL comes in two very different flavours. The base car and its 3.5-litre engine is a fine piece of machinery that will find its fair share of fans. However, it's the super handling all-wheel drive version that's going to take the cake. Along with its shiny new face comes a ton of advanced technology. One of the key features on this TL is right here, super handling all-wheel drive. Now, as with all other all-wheel drive systems, this one manages to divvy up the power and send it front to rear to the wheels that can put it to best use. Where this thing takes everything one level higher is its ability to split the power between the left and right rear wheels. When you go honking into a corner, it'll actually send more power to the outside rear wheel. That turns the car into the corner, which does two good things. It reduces the likelihood of understeer, and it reduces the amount of steering input the driver needs. Through a pylon test, it works wonders. It's even better when you're out on the open road. Combine the all-wheel drive ability with a solid suspension and P245 45R18 tyres, and you have a car that rides as though it's on rails. In the SH all-wheel drive application, the springs are stiffer, the damping is firmer, and there's better roll stiffness. The upshot is less body roll in the corner and a noticeable decrease in nosedive under hard braking. For a sedan, the TL is remarkably balanced, especially given the fact that 59% of the car's mass sits over the front wheels. One expects the TL to understeer far more than it does. Even as liberties are taken, it remains commendably neutral. The back end of this TL has been well thought through. First of all, the rear seat is roomy, and so this thing is a full-on family sedan in spite of its very sporty overtones. Then you get to the trunk. There's actually a proper button here for that, thank you very much. Inside, a roomy trunk. The hinges are boxed so you don't crush anything placed underneath them. The drawbacks, the opening here is a little narrow, and there's only a ski pass-through, no split folding rear seats. Power for the SH all-wheel drive model comes from an upsized 3.7-litre V6 engine. While the base 3.5 is a fine engine, the larger engine delivers a much healthier kick, 305 horsepower and 275 pound-feet of torque. The difference is that the 3.7's variable valve timing and lift electronic control, or VTEC, works on both the intake and exhaust cams. In simple terms, the small cam lobe is used to smooth idle, lower emissions and improve fuel efficiency. When the engine switches to its high lift cam profile at 4700 RPM, the focus shifts to power production. It's a super system that squeezes the very best out of an already delightful engine. Slip behind the wheel of the TL and you find exactly what you expect. a driver's car. The seats are superb, the tilt and telescopic steering wheel adjustment, and a very well placed dead pedal, they keep you put when you play. The rest of it, it's what you expect from Acura as well. Plenty of top-notch materials, navigation system, and a wonderful audio system. The only thing I'm not sure about, the center stack. There are just too many buttons here. It looks overly complicated. Then you get to the steering wheel. Believe it or not, there are 16 functions on here, plus the paddle shifters, and of course, the horn. All of the technology at work brings a very quick car. Mat the gas and the TL scoots to 100k in 6.6 seconds, and it bridges the 80 to 120 km/h gap in an equally enthusiastic 6 seconds. The engine also remains suitably quiet when it's forced to work. Many larger displacement 6s tend to sound a little grumpy. Part of the car's alacrity is down to the 5-speed manumatic transmission. The ratios are knitted together such that the engine remains in its sweet spot whenever the driver decides to push on. Lift off and the box upshifts quickly to promote fuel efficiency. As a team, the powertrain works together in a rare harmony. This new TL is a superb piece of machinery, and it solves an age-old dilemma. You need 4 doors and the room for the family commitment, but you don't want to give up the sheer fun of driving a sports car. This is it in one package. There's a ton of power, the super handling all-wheel drive system works exceptionally well, and the interior is very nicely finished. Now, the thing I find most intriguing, this car dances all over the outgoing TL Type S, and it was a hot shoe in its own right. Can you imagine what a Type S version of this car will be like? Makes you wonder.
Michelin, a better way forward.
Recently, motoring had the opportunity to go behind the scenes at the Bahia rubber plantation in Brazil. Along with the rubber trees, the plantation is home to a dedicated research center.
What's really great about that is Michelin's doing research into the production of rubber trees and is sharing all of that information with all the small farmers who depend on the rubber industry for their livelihood about how to increase production, make their trees very disease resistant, help them to mature very quickly, and to provide an income for their families.
In Bahia, what they want to do there is it's not only a factory, they're the main employer, and so everybody in that region wants to be a Michelin employee. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to make economic conditions better for the entire region as well as their workers there. Things such as financing for homes. I mean, they're helping to finance homes, and not only for the workers to finance their own homes, they're actually going out and building co-op homes, similar to what the railroads did in North America way back when to help promote the economy and get the workers where they needed.
You essentially bleed a tree almost like you think about maple syrup,
right.
Which that's what I always get when I go to Canada is maple syrup. It's actually very similar. You cut the bark and you bleed the tree and collect the latex, so it's a very similar operation. But what drips out of one tree only makes one passenger car tire for the whole year. So you can imagine how many trees we need and how much latex coming from those trees we need, and why increasing the production of each tree and keeping it healthy is so important.
The most interesting thing I got coming out of there was the fact that there is sort of a real sense with Michelin of environmental responsibility. When they undertook this project there in Brazil, they really did it with a way that not only respected the environment, but they also made it a point that the local farmers who are anxious to, develop the land, they did it in an environmentally responsible way.
You know, yours truly and some other automotive journalists did something this week to the 2010 Mercedes-Benz GLK 350 that I don't think an owner would do. That's right, we took it off-roading. And I gotta tell you, it was more than able, very impressive. But you know what? If you're writing the check, I don't think you're going to be quite as adventurous. But I've got a question for Bill Gardner in the Quaker State Garage. Bill, let's say you come out to this construction site and you've got a choice to drive either the Mercedes-Benz or the Chevy pickup. What's it going to be?
No doubt about it, Brad. Definitely the Chevy pickup. And if you need help making that decision, get your insurance contract out and read that fine print, the part where it says if you're off-roading, you're pretty much on your own when you total it. And believe me, you may not total it, but you'll probably do some damage at some stage of the game. Anyhow, this week I want to talk about sourcing out some key parts on your vehicle when you're servicing it. Now this Volvo XC90, these beautiful wheels, I mean, look at the openings in these rims. You can pretty much do a visual brake inspection on this thing without even pulling a wheel. You see the whole works really well. Beautiful vented rotor, four-wheel disc brakes on this vehicle, great brakes. However, if you live in the big city, you know, the expressways, when they're moving fast, there's a lot of traffic volume, and it's not long before you're hammering those brakes hard and frequently, so you need really good brakes, and you'll wear them out fairly frequently. One big choice you've got to make, where you source out those replacement brake parts. The choice that you're often making, especially with frequently replaced parts like brake components, is OE, genuine parts from the dealer, or aftermarket parts from the parts supplier, the jobber, etc. Now, in many cases, if the vehicle's really new or recently updated model, you may only have one choice, and that's the dealer, because the aftermarket hasn't picked up on that new application yet. So sometimes your second phone call goes nowhere anyways, and you're going to the dealer and paying top dollar for the parts. And when the vehicle's new and it's a high-end vehicle, it's totally justified. A lot of motorists, though, when their vehicles get older, want to save a little bit of money, they'll go with the aftermarket parts. Now here's something interesting. Just doing a couple of brake jobs in the past week or so. One was on an Infiniti car, a Nissan product, and I phoned, and interestingly enough, the OE or genuine parts at the dealer were very competitively priced, literally the same price as the aftermarket parts. So the choice was easy because the parts are definitely better, OE or genuine. Very next day, doing literally the same kind of a brake job on a Volvo vehicle, made those two phone calls. There was an aftermarket fit and an OE fit. Decided to go with OE parts because in both cases these cars were late model, clean, well maintained. The owners definitely took care of them, and they would associate the value with putting genuine parts. Interesting thing though, when I went to put the parts on, I see the brake rotors are made in China and the brake pads that I got from the Volvo dealer are made in India. Absolutely nothing wrong with them. The fit, the finish, the performance, everything was there just fine, definitely made to Volvo specs. The only thing is, when you go to the jobber, you get those rotors made in China, you get the made in India brake pads down the street at the jobber for pretty much any make and model of car, and they're a whole lot less money. So, you know what? I think it's really important that you make those phone calls, check both, and ask where those parts are sourced out, then make your decision. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2009.
Make sure you check out motoringtv.com along with catching programs you may have missed on TSN. We have now posted our nominees for top vehicles of 2009. We want you to vote, and we'll have your results and our results on the upcoming 1-hour Car of the Year special. All the details are at motoringtv.com.
Closed captioning on Motoring 2009 is brought to you by the 2009 Chevrolet Traverse Crossover. It's everything you've ever wished for, and then some.
You know, I really don't recommend that you wear something like this while you're driving. It's too bulky, particularly mitts like this. You want a pair of thin but warm gloves. But you know, you really should consider the fact that this is Canada. It does get cold, and you might be in an emergency someday. Your car might fall off the road or it might break down. So carrying something like this in the trunk might not be a bad idea. There are also things called space blankets, which are outdoor sporting goods store can supply to you. These are very thin metallic devices that pack up real compact, but when you spread them out, they can conserve a surprising amount of heat. And at the risk of this sounding like Chatelaine magazine, you might also consider carrying a candle in a metal tin, along of course with some waterproof matches. It'll conserve and generate a fair amount of heat. You might want to carry some dried nuts or fruits just to keep you going if you get peckish during the night. More important, actually, is packets of drinking water, because you get thirsty before you get hungry. If you want to keep the car warm, you can use the engine, provided it still works, but rather than run it continuously, shut it off, turn it on every couple of minutes. It'll conserve the fuel. It's also a good idea to always drive in winter on a full tank of gas. The worst thing that you can possibly do, walk across the field to try and get to that farmhouse over there. Chances are it's a lot farther than it looks. You probably won't make it. Besides, there's wolves out there. And while I'm thinking of winter, the worst thing you can do for your car in winter is to let it idle for minutes at a time. It's really hard on the engine because the raw gasoline washes the oil off the cylinder walls, not to mention the fact that you're obviously wasting fuel and polluting the atmosphere. So get in the car, fire it up, give it maybe 10 seconds to make sure oil pressure is throughout the car, and then drive away. The car warms up faster when it's under load, just like you do. So with a little bit of preparation, you too can enjoy this global warming. I'm Jim Kenzie.
So what do we think of the new Mercedes-Benz GLK 350? Well, first I'd like to announce it has gone into the motoring history books as the very first 2010 model that we have driven this year. As for the vehicle, as you might expect from a Benz, great handling on the highway, lots of power, and if you so choose, you can actually take it off-roading. But as I mentioned earlier, there's a lack of luggage space for yours truly, but it's indicative of this segment. If it's me, my money, and I want a Benz, I'm going with an E-Class wagon. Anyway, GRAEME will have a much closer look on a future test drive. Before we go, once again remind you to go to motoringtv.com because we've got our Car of the Year poll underway, and pretty soon we'll have our 1 hour Car of the Year special on TSN where we'll announce your winners and ours. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
100 more years! 100 more years! When gasoline was at $4.35, we were told that we had completely misplanned our business. We should have seen this coming. We stupidly insisted on building the full-size trucks and sport utilities that the American public desperately wanted to buy, and now all of a sudden we're back down to $1.50. Hybrids are just about sales-proof. Small cars are sales-proof, and the dealers say, please don't send us any more Chevrolet Cobalts, but please do send us some more Silverado pickup trucks and Tahoes.
Motoring 2009 on TSN has been brought to you by the new Q Horsepower from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Michelin, a better way forward.